and welcome to Catacris Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.catacris.com. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. It's my great pleasure to be speaking with Richard Black, the lead singer from Shark Island. How you doing today, Richard?
Really good, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're talking to Richard today because DEKO Entertainment is getting ready to reissue Shark Island's school bus CD. So talk a little bit about the decision to do that, because I was reading up on this, and I understand it was never available on CD until now. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, it was. That's very true. This was an album that I put together back in the early '80s.
Yeah.
We were still on the club circuit on Sunset Strip, and trying to get a record deal like the 10,000 other bands in Los Angeles, and we didn't have a big budget, so we were trying to collect all our resources together and try to piecemeal this thing together with different people involved and so on and so forth, and we put it together, and it was it's got that early '80s kind of non-quality, but it did. We were able to pull it off. We had it on a LP, a long play, vinyl record. Yeah. And we also released it on cassette.
Yeah.
And
back in the day.
Of course, DVD. CDs weren't even around or anything. And then it kind of turned into like a cult album, a cult favorite. We had two versions of it. The cover, it was like turquoise and pink, and then pink and turquoise, and one of them was only 500. But over the years, we sold everything out, and then I started noticing that the album was trading among record people for like $250, $300 for the record. It was like it became quite a
collector's item. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And then I had I think I had one.
One copy.
From my personal, and that's obviously not to say that the CD is going to be worth that much, because it's a reproduction basically, but it has all the elements that the original album had, and a couple extra pieces of artwork and some extra photos and a couple extra songs from that genre, not necessarily off that album, but from the genre. But it has a couple little surprises too that make it kind of special, other than just a knockoff without any kind of participation on my part. I kind of was involved with it, because I had originally even designed all the artwork for the record, and then put it all together. I was the big organizer at the time, so I wanted to kind of keep it that theme and that kind of time frame, and then the masters were all gone.
Wow.
They have since disappeared. The 2-inch tracks and the masters, everything was gone. So we had to find a virgin record album of it to actually get the tracks off of. So that had to come out of like my personal copy that we had to have it transferred and digitized and put together, and it's kind of neat, for anybody that has been there. They'll certainly appreciate it, and then people that just kind of wanted to have a window into the past and what was happening back then, and it really was a remarkable time for music, for Sunset Strip, for Los Angeles. The music scene in general. It was really a remarkable time, and if you don't know much about it, it's then you would not be interested. But if you were able to actually see it or experience any of it, it was really a one in a lifetime experience, and I'm sure it'll never happen like that again.
Oh yeah, I mean that was my era of music. That's the time I was coming up, and I got to tell you, Richard, what I think's cool about all this and everything you were just telling us. I love it's almost this happened organically, the reissue and stuff. I mean, it's almost like you said, the fans kind of demanding it, and it's amazing when you stop to think. Shark Island hasn't really. I mean, you guys put out a new album, I think, just last year, but before that, you haven't been doing too much. But it's amazing. I was reading on just in prepping for the interview today that I went on YouTube and you can finally get the album on YouTube if you want to check this stuff out. Just to kind of get an idea what Shark Island is about. And people were commenting, "Oh wow, this album is finally on YouTube. I haven't been able to find this even on YouTube for years." So it's amazing that people for years have not had access to this album. It wasn't even available on YouTube until just recently.
Right. Well, it wasn't digitized until very recently. So that's the reason. We've been asked for years, hey, why don't you redo it? Especially when people couldn't get the record because it was so expensive. But you're in intuitive thinking as you go. Oh yeah, well if I get and make a CD, it's going to be worth as much too, which is of course not nonsensical completely. But it is a respectable reproduction of and to be able to listen to it and just to go wow. Yeah. And not have to actually damage any vinyl or anything, but just actually have it there and just go, wow, this is it. And it was a lot of the things were recorded in different studios at different time with different producers. There's a good list of the credits of the people that were involved in it, where we were doing it, and we really, in a way, we really didn't know what we were doing almost at the time. We were just kind of taking things into our own hands and saying, well, if we can't get a record deal, then we'll make our own. And then we just pulled it all together. And organized it. That's it.
In fact, Richard, I think when I talked to you last year, as you were releasing the latest Shark Island studio album, you were telling me at the time that back in the day, you guys were like the house band at Gazzari's, and part of the way that you got into the studio to record some of the stuff was that you made some kind of deal, I think, with Bill Gazzari or some of the studio owners, and that's how you would record some of the stuff.
That's right, and that was indeed part of it. That was indeed part of it. And there's parts of it that he was, for instance, a good example. He was in exchange for funding part of it or getting us to do like basic tracks that he wanted. He was demanding that we do a remake of New York, New York, and I'm like, really? New York, New York? I mean, like, that's kind of weird, I don't know. It's kind of I was, frankly speaking, a little bit uncomfortable with it at the time. I was like, I don't know if I wanted to even do that, but I'm just going, gosh, I'm here. I know this guy. He's a big supporter. I've been playing in his club on Sunset Strip every Friday and Saturday for 2.5 years. 2 shows a night. I mean, that's a long time and a lot of shows. Just that. Yeah. And I said, well, okay, well, let's just do something campy and we'll do it. And he goes, oh, I got a big surprise for you. And I'm like, now what? And he goes, well, I got this. I used to be able to do this really great Bill Gazzari in the interpretation, and this is what he used to talk like. Yeah. And he used to say, Richard, you're going to be a big star someday, but you need to do New York, UK. And that's actually a very good
impersonation. I mean, I remember all those.
Impersonation of him. He was very much and very animated, very much a character, and his club reflected that. He had secret passages in his club, leading from and he had a toilet sitting right in his office, so he could sit on the can and do his business. It was like really weird. It was weird stuff.
Let me ask you, Richard. I mean, that was a legendary place, and you're talking about the Godfather. He was known as the Godfather of rock and roll, and I remember hearing all those radio ads he used to do back in the day, like on KNAC. So being the house band and having such a connection with this guy, what was it like when they finally, I mean, first they tear a club down, and then he finally, he passes on.
The question was, what was it like?
Well, I mean, that must have to see a legendary kind of club at the time, get torn down.
Yeah, well, it was kind of bittersweet, as is a lot of things in life. You kind of, I think we as people, as humans, we more often than not like to hold on to things and have them not change, because they're comfortable, and we figured out the routines, and we just don't want it to change. So when there's something that changes, it's very difficult to adjust to. It goes with everything. Look at this world. Look at this world we live in now. It's just, it's heartbreaking to see, especially, I'm a lot older. I've seen it.
You've done it.
I'm a witness. I saw it firsthand, and let me tell you, people today would be shocked at to what that scene was like. And then that club is the same as it was an institution. It was a standing institution. It was like it ended up staying that cube size when they switched it to the whatever, I forget what they called it, but But it was always like these remnants. They're like these relics from the past, from the old realm. You know what I mean? And I miss them. They were really a great, memorable time in my life, in a lot of people's lives. It was just, it molded people and set their standards for the future and what to expect and not to expect. I mean, very fantastic time. So it was sad to see it go. But,
I mean, even up until the late 90s, you could still go down, to Sunset Strip, and even back then, they had concerts every night. You'd see like creepy-looking people walking down the street, but it was quite a scene.
But it wasn't anything. It wasn't like it used to be. I mean, it used to be. I don't know if you were there or not. I'm not sure how old you are, but I mean, you can walk on Sunset Boulevard, and the sidewalks, both sides of the street were like shoulder to shoulder, 10 deep. People walking. It was just like it was bleeding over into the. If you wanted to hurry, you actually had to step out into the street and around the parked cars to move along, because everything was just a standstill pack, and everybody was dressed to the nines, and the women were just beautiful, and everybody was just trimmed and just bringing their best. It was wonderful.
Everybody looked like a rock star, and I'm not a musician. I'm not a musician, but that was my rock scene. That was my music from that era, and so I definitely was around back then. And I'll tell you, I had a real kind of realization about a year ago when they weren't allowing bands to go out and do any live shows. I mean, it was getting to a point, somebody told me, where like places like the Roxy and the Whiskey came really close to closing down because they weren't allowing any shows down there, and they didn't know if they ever were going to again.
Oh yeah, well this thing that happened to us, 2 years ago. I don't want to ding your show, but it pretty much destroyed a lot of things, even beyond entertainment. It destroyed people's livelihood. There's small businesses and people's jobs.
Oh yeah.
And on top of that, if you don't comply, you lose your job, and you can't work even if you're willing to work, or you can't do a lot of things. Look, it's trying to come back right now, but LA has got some very, very stringent rules about whether or not and what is the procedure.
Oh yeah, I mean,
being able to walk in. I mean, they're trying to do it. They want me to do a show in April at the Whiskey. Wow. And I'm kind of going, why? I'm thinking like, why? Well, and I have a huge issue on things, and I've always, just as my personality, I always stand on my own principles. Those are my principles. Principles are the building blocks of your character, and you just have to do what you believe, and you have to do it at any expense, whatever it costs. And if you don't, then all you're really doing is you're a slave to someone else telling you what to do. So you either do something, and so be it. If you shoot yourself in the foot, at least you're doing what you believe. And the alternative is, well, okay, I didn't shoot myself in the foot, but I'm a slave to someone else's demands, and I won't do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Richard. I feel these days, again, not to make it political, but I totally agree that too many people are way too willing to just sit here and comply. You know, I mean,
they are, and it's easy for us to same because we go, okay, well, how are they complying? But gosh, look at a person that's just bought a house 4 years ago and they started a family and they maybe have 2 kids and they're depending on making their house payment and they're depending on making their car payment and raising their kids and trying to start a family and trying to get going, and all of a sudden they go, well, you can't work unless you do this.
Yeah.
And then any man worth his salt is going to go, well, gee, I kind of have to do this, don't I? I kind of have to.
Yeah.
Just to work, just to sustain, just to keep it going. Thankfully, I'm not. Thank God, I'm not in that position, so I can just I can make crazy demands for myself. But so I feel for them.
Yeah, because to me,
it's just awful.
The powers that be, the ones that want to control us and everything, like you're saying, they have no fear of losing their jobs, but they don't mind other people, hard-working people, losing their jobs. That's kind of a problem I have,
Yeah, it's them, and it's us.
I mean,
what it seems like it is to me. And and until there's enough people to to resist. Uniformly, it's just not going to change because nobody. I know you don't want to get political. I don't.
Oh, I don't mind. I don't mind.
But it's hard. It's hard not to.
Yeah.
But you know what? Everything I've noticed, in my life, and I've, that any time you surrender any of your freedoms, no matter how small it is, you never get it back.
Yeah, I'm with you, Richard. And you know why I don't mind talking about this? Because I'll tell you, for the longest time, I remember growing up, people wanting to censor, Ozzy albums and Judas Priest albums and stuff like that. And I'd be like, that's totally wrong, trying to censor somebody. And what gets me is you have a lot of these hippie artists like Neil Young wanting to censor other people, or even somebody like Dee Snider, that was once the anti-establishment, getting online and shaming people for not wearing a mask. Again, that should be somebody's choice. And I'm like, somebody like Dee Snider, especially, people are trying to censor your records, and these are the people that you're trying to kiss up to now. I just don't get it.
It's complete hubris. They think they're trying. Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Really, really seriously, who do you think you are? I mean, none of us, anybody listening in there, nobody was really asked to be born here.
Yeah.
To have to live a life. No one is. So we all get born, and then we kind of we go through our lives and we kind of try to make decisions that are in our own best interest and do the best we can until somebody decides, well, okay, I am the captain now. I am the boss of you. You don't get a free choice. You're going to do what I say. What happened to freedom?
Freedom of choice.
My body, my choice. What happened to all that? What happened? I go, if I don't want to do something and it's going to kill me, so be it. If I perish, I perish. I swear. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
But for somebody, look, we're going to this is for your own safety. That's the same thing they told the Jews when they wanted to get in the cars. They get on this train. It's for your own safety.
Yeah. And
the exact same thing they said. So it's just like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not interested.
Yeah. And Richard, getting back to Shark Island, it really is amazing because the band was kind of has been inactive for quite a while, and then you kind of made a comeback last year, and you're on a great little label, DEKO Entertainment. How did you hook up with them?
Well, that came out of after we finished the record with Manifest. There was some kind of interest there with DEKO, and they got together and they kind of put this whole promo thing together. I mean, I was perfectly willing to just it's fine. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't have any expectations. If I don't have any expectations, you don't lose that much. You're just going to go well. If I'm wrong, well, it'll be a good day. So
Well, I mean,
I'm grateful for it. But here I am. I kind of quote, retired. So to speak, a couple times. I was, in 2000, 16, I was in Croatia living in a beach house.
Wow.
And in a fishing village. So, and I was perfectly happy with just living there and dying there. I give a shit.
It kind of shows you the power of music. Like I said, I was even prepping for an interview today, reading stuff about, School Bus on YouTube, and the fact that people had such a desire to get, this album hasn't been available in any format for years. And so, if nothing else, it gets the album back out there and reminds people how great of a band Shark Island. Well, I was also reading other stuff. People were writing that, when the album came out back in '86, that a lot of people thought that, the following year when Guns N' Roses came out, that Axl Rose was kind of copying what you were doing.
That's an old story. We don't even want to go there, but that's kind of a known thing, and it's kind of a a rehash thing, and I don't really
want to get in.
I don't talk about it much these days, and the reason I don't is because it ends up sounding like sour grapes.
No.
Yeah. So but nothing could change the fact. Okay, how Axl Rose today, or after his first video, Welcome to the Jungle, he's really nothing like me. Thankfully, and thankfully for because but at the same time, it goes, in my opinion, back to kind of like character, because when I started doing this, I started in the 70s.
Okay, yeah.
My first band I had was like 77. And I played the whiskey when I wasn't old enough to drink.
Wow.
I played it way many times, and we used to play 6, sometimes 7 nights a week, anywhere, any clubs. Friday and Saturday happened to be Hollywood at Gazzari's. That just happened to be the gig that we can book, that we can depend on. But Tuesday night we'd be in Pasadena, Wednesday night we'd be in Huntington Beach, Thursday night we'd be in Riverside. So we'd be moving constantly and playing. We didn't have day jobs. We weren't doing anything but this. We were just hell-bent for leather to do this, and when you have that much seat time, and what I mean by that is on stage, it ends up being a very, very comfortable place.
Yeah.
And you develop a craft after a while. It's not like something you're learning. You're just like, you're developing it because you're there.
Yeah.
I would be on stage, and I would be more comfortable on stage than I was at home.
Yeah.
It was just because I knew what was going to happen. It was my world, and that's what I did. It was hours and hours and hours, and we did all kinds of things, experimenting, dance moves, stage setup, sounds, arrangements, songs, all that stuff. We just did it. And then for somebody to come along and just kind of, borrow it or whatever, and it's just kind of like, well, why didn't you do the fucking work, man?
Yeah.
You know what? This took me years to kind of put together, but so what do you do?
Yeah. Well,
what do you do?
I'll tell you.
And then other weird things happened with that band, and it's all kind of questionable and kind of ugly, and it kind of speaks to the whole ugly side of the entertainment business anyway.
Yeah.
And me being the person of character, didn't want to be involved in it. Being cozy with you doesn't have anything to do with music. And with writing music or performing or anything. So.
Yeah, again, Richard, I didn't mean to bring that all, but the reason I brought it up is because, like I said, I kind of came across it this morning prepping for an interview, and I was like, wow, I've never heard this guy compared to Axl Rose, but hearing that story, I'm glad I asked, because it kind of makes sense. And before I let you go, Richard, I got to tell you that in regards to School Bus, I think my favorite track on the album is Excess Marks the Spot. Talk a little bit about that song, because it's a cool groove.
Excess Marks the Spot I guess it really speaks to the times that we were, that it was written in. It was in the 80s, and the 80s were a very, very opulent time, very ostentatious, very, show off.
Yeah.
Like, you wanted to show off everything, and you know what? I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I always had fancy cars that I could barely afford the gasoline, but wanted to look the part. I wanted to look, and even more than wanting to look the part, I was a real big believer of kind of affirmations and convincing convincing yourself that you were already that, and then the world will kind of follow you after that. It was kind of a philosophy of affirmations that I was really into. So you just kind of basically are always, looking and trying to think and appear better than you were, so that your world will follow along and manifest that,
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying that, really, I'm not even saying that is a faulty philosophy. I'm not.
Yeah.
But it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult when you get into trying to do that, because your ego, you know what I mean by ego here, is your little voice that's constantly clamoring, is always telling you one thing. If I were to tell you, Jason, listen, I do not think about the Eiffel Tower right now for the next 15 minutes. That all you could think about would be the Eiffel Tower.
Of course, yeah.
You couldn't do it. But so the only way to get around that phenomenon is to replace it. So I would say, okay, I'm going to think about ketchup instead. Much easier. So once you think about ketchup, then the Eiffel Tower disappears.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, that's what the philosophy was like.
Oh wow.
So that's what that song kind of is. My favorite song on it was actually an old club thing that we used to do. It's a very, very slow, sparse song. It's called "Read My Lips."
Okay. Wow.
And we used to the club used to just get all the lights would come down.
Yeah.
Everybody would light a bunch of candles on stage, and then we'd have this like Zen moment, and we just play this thing. And the song was sometimes it was 5 minutes long, sometimes it was 20 minutes long.
Wow.
And a lot of great improv used to come out of it. It was very hard to transfer onto a recording.
I bet, yeah.
But it's kind of it's there, and if you were fortunate enough to be part of that little seance, it'll make some memories for you. But it was a very interesting kind of a dark time.
Yeah, and in fact, so just so people know listening to this, so you're going to have a deluxe edition of School Bus, and it's set to come out on February 25th, I was reading. So I was going to ask you, too, before we let you go, Richard, as far as singers that influenced you when you were coming up, who were the singers, or, maybe the one singer that really...
What singer influenced me?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't really
one guy,
one person, because it all ended up being as like when I was getting started, I was very young and I didn't have any way to buy albums. So what I was doing is listening to my sisters. Wow. She was a few years older than me, so when she would leave, I would put all the records on, and I kind of picked up things from everyone. I was really into a lot of the folk singers of the time.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I liked Mick Jagger, of course, and of course I liked the Beatles. I think I liked the Rolling Stones a little bit more than the Beatles, I remember, but I would listen to a lot of the old Joe Bett catalog, like the Temptations and Al Green.
Oh, wow.
Soul singers and stuff, and those are the people. That's kind of where I picked up my. Yeah. I think I picked up my sense of soul, because it's one thing to just perform a song and you could be a great pianist, but if you don't bring soul to the table, it might as well just be a machine, some AI that's playing it. You have to be able to breathe within the music, within the notes, and that's kind of where I picked that up.
Oh, wow.
All the old soul singers. So James Brown even.
Wow.
And those would be examples that you really wouldn't think of.
Yeah. That's why I asked.
But then again, that was when I was listening to it. That's how old I was. I was very young.
Wow.
And I was listening to things. I was listening to even Led Zeppelin. I mean, none of my friends knew what that even was.
Yeah.
What's Led Zeppelin?
Yeah. And the Beatles. I mean, of course, everybody loves the Beatles and great songwriters. But a lot of people, when they hear like Helter Skelter, oh, that's a Motley Crue song. No, that was a Beatles tune. In fact, that's probably the closest to metal they ever got.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, like the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun, is there?
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah, two more questions for you, Richard, and then I'll let you go. I noticed that the drummer you had on there was this guy, Walt Woodward III. I think he was the drummer that was on the Scream album. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the album. He was the drummer during a great portion of that time. And then the band ended up kind of semi breaking up because we had a development deal with A&M Records, and A&M Records wanted me to go solo.
Oh wow!
And I wasn't I was still into that whole
band thing,
four musketeers thing, and I really needed the support of everybody, and we were friends. We were all buddies, and we were like a band of friends, and so it was really hard for me to think on those terms, like I'm gonna go
solo.
So they but at the time, we're like, I was like 12 years in. To doing this, and I'm going, it's not happening. Look at these people around me; they're all taken off, and it's not happening. And I guess I kind of got desperate. At some point, you make desperate moves. I mean, my life was starting to get weird. I wasn't, able to generate the money or move along. And I was going, well, how long can I do this?
Got to make a living, right?
I want to make some substantial movies. I don't want to work for tips in a jar. For all my life. So, and then here we are with A&M, which was a very great kind of a boutique artists label that was just amazing. Even their campus at their I call it a campus. At their office in Hollywood was just majestic. It would look like like a little village, and I was going, man, this is great. This is fantastic. So anyway, during that whole thing, Walt left. Because we weren't making any money. We weren't gigging at that point. So they took us off the circuit. All of a sudden, our bread and butter was gone. And, I had a little snippet from, support from them, but there wasn't anything for the band. And he had to get work. And, it was not like they were paying my rent or anything, but there was just, they were flying me around and writing with this and that. So anyway, he ended up joining us, he had a band, and then he ended up going back home, back to New Jersey, and then he died.
Yeah, wow.
So,
and then
the people that I worked with died. I'm surprised I'm still alive.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's that like? Even all these years later, you're still kind of the guy waving the Shark Island flag. I mean, I guess partly because you're the one people think of when they think of Shark Island, but...
Well, that's true, and, it's not necessarily because I'm trying to wave the Shark Island banner, everything like that. But when you start it, when you want to do it, when you're working in a business that's so competitive, and everything in the entertainment business is competitive, you want to take kind of any advantage. So if I use Shark Island, then I automatically go, well, at least I got this base here. I got a base here for somebody that has heard of me before, and I don't have to start from Zippo.
Makes sense.
If I was to, change my name and just start from Zippo, I would just be nothing again. And not to say I'm nothing.
I got you.
Nothing. But so I keep going because people remember the band from back when, and they have an experience with it, and they want to get involved, and that's how Manifest Records, that's how DEKO, they started going into it just because there was something there. It sounds cynical, but it is true that we are all individuals pursuing our separate needs, and that's just true. That's not selfish. That's not nothing. I mean,
it's life.
I do
it's
it.
Life.
Everyone does it.
You got to make a living, right?
Yeah. That's what you got to do. So everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to see where they can make a buck. I mean, if you can get together with people that maybe you're like-minded or get along with, hey, that's a bonus. And then you can still pursue that, but people are inherently evil. They're just going to look for themselves, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that's just the way it is. Just a fact of life.
Well, like Richard, you said you were semi-retired, and I respect that in the sense that I don't know if a lot of people realize that like a lot of musicians, when you weren't able to do music, you found another way to make a living. You were doing other things instead of just kind of, not doing nothing. So I have all respect in the world for folks like that. Like you said, you got to find a way to make a living, and you do.
Well, you do. You got to do something. So I got into like doing metal sculpting for a long time. And then making the rounds with hauling a bunch of art around, doing shows and stuff like that. And then moved into and then I got commissioned to do some things by a huge antique dealer in LA. Yeah. And I said, well, I thought to myself, I can do that. That's pretty easy to do. It's easier than doing your own stuff.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then of course we started this. My wife and I started this animal rescue thing.
Oh,
so
cool.
I got that going. We got a bunch of abandoned animals that we kind of take in, which is another show altogether.
I bet, yeah.
You do what you got to do. You do what you got to do, and you just keep plowing forward. And you're just gonna go. You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So as far as the reissue that comes out February 25th, people can get physical copies of that as well as digitally, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, of course.
And I was going to say, DEKO, I just got to tell people, you got a great roster of artists on there. I had a chance recently to interview Carmine about his Guitar Zeus album. That I feel, never got a proper release until DEKO put it out. I mean, finally, it's getting the attention that deserves, They're just great, that label. And I guess the final question, Richard, is since Shark Island already did a new studio, do you have plans for another one down the line?
No. But I wasn't planning on doing
anything.
This last one.
Yeah.
My last one, I did Bloodline originally. I thought of doing it, and it was going to be just unabashedly my swan song. That's the last one I'm going to do. I'm not going to bother. It's just way too much trouble. And it is. It's a lot of trouble, Jason.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
To do something like this, especially if you're on some kind of a budget that you can't just you know, and you don't have dedicated people that are willing to put in their time, and put in themselves, and do it. It's really hard to do. So I mean, I may do it. I mean, if it's received, if it ends up being received really well, and so far we've been last two records we've been on Billboard with the first one. The second one we're entered I think at 44 or something like that, and we went up to I think 16 on the first one if I'm not mistaken.
That's pretty amazing.
That was out of the blue.
Yeah.
I was going, well, we didn't even do a show.
The funny thing about that is it's almost like you said you didn't do a single show, and almost like back in the day when you were working really hard at trying to build the band up and that, you're working your ass off, and then it didn't take that much to get to number 16,
Yeah, go figure. I can't figure it out. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense. Why did I do all that? Of course, the times have changed.
Yeah.
The internet and all that, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, you just don't.
And this is really the final question, Richard, because I was reading also, I'm a big Edgar Winter fan, and I understand that one of the guys that produced you was Rick Derringer. Talk about what it was like working with him.
Well, that's right. That's one of the people that he produced a big chunk of that of School Bus.
Oh, wow.
He does it. His name is on there. His credits, producer, blah blah blah. And when we met him, we were doing a show somewhere in, I think it was in LA actually, and it was at some kind of an airplane hangar or something. We were like opening up for him, and anyway, so we were still very very young back then, because this was several years before School Bus. And I remember, and I'm going, oh my God, that's Rick Derringer. That's when it really even mattered to me, when celebrity matters, which it doesn't even matter at all to me. I realize that it's just a big smoke screen. But anyway, at the time, I'm like, oh, it's Rick Derringer. So I remember walking up to him, introducing myself, and I was saying, hey Rick, I go, is there any advice you can give to a young upcoming band? I said straight up to him. And he looked at me and he says, get out as soon as you can.
Wow, he must have known something, but he's still doing it.
He did know something. asshole thing to say. You know, what would he say? Something like that. You know, why wouldn't he encourage you, like, with some kind of a flowery comment, like, never quit, keep going, follow your dreams. You know, why didn't he do that? No, but he said, get out as soon as you can. It's just a dead end. And I'm like, and I didn't get it for years later. I finally went, oh, now I know what Rick Derringer meant by that.
And with that in mind, I got to ask, have you ever had any like up and coming musician come up to you and ask for your advice, and what was the advice you gave them?
Well, yeah, that has happened, and what I end up doing is I forward Rick Derringer's comment and I tell the story along with it, so they don't think I'm being too flippant with them. But, But basically, I said, get out. If you don't think that you're going to be able to like support yourself for 15 years. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you're going to be completely free and self-sustaining to completely commit and be prolific and write constantly. If you don't think you can do that,
get out.
Then get out. Then get out right away. Sooner the better.
Well, Richard Black, thanks for taking time to talk to me again. I really enjoyed talking to you. Maybe we can do it again down the line, but I urge everybody to go out and get a copy of a newish edition of School Bus, which originally came out in 1986 on February 25th, and I think they're going to dig it.
And I would suggest getting the physical copy. I think you get a download with it. So, I mean, it's just because when you have something to hold, then you have something to actually look at. And it really there's some thought into it to keep it authentic.
I'm with you.
It's kind of a nice souvenir.
I'm with you, Richard. I still listen to CDs in my car. I miss the days of going to a record store. I mean, I think kids today really are missing out on that experience.
I hear you.
Well, take care, my friend, and we'll do it again. Bye-bye.